Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Good Monday, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
I'm not sure what you're thinking from the title of this episode. We left it a little obscure. We thought this will be fun.
Like do a little teaser and say, what do you think this is about? And have people like comment and then be like, tricked ya.
We actually just thought this will be fun. Let's make this the title, but it really has to do with the topic, when to get out. And it's about, I feel like there should be a drum roll. We have to really get on the special effects that some people use on their podcasts.
I know.
we're not that tech savvy. I mean, we're tech savvy, but we're not that tech savvy.
She's tech savvy. I am not. I don't even know how to post on the Facebook page that we have.
So here's the drum roll. Ready?
Yeah.
We're talking about when to get out when you have entered children's play. That's what we're talking about today. When do I get out?
Yeah.
And you should get out. Like, you shouldn't stay.
Shouldn't stay there. Yeah.
We've spoken so many times about the meaningful conversations that you should have while children are playing, that you go in and you ask open-ended questions that will extend their learning. You add vocabulary, you pose questions and dilemmas about what they're doing, and you base your conversations on what they're doing while they're playing and interacting with things because they're interested in those things. So I base my conversation on that, right? And then the question becomes, when do I finish? When do I get done?
Do I do the graceful exit kind of thing?
Or not so graceful, but when do I exit?
When do I leave?
Definitely. When do I leave? I think that there are some people who instinctively know when to leave, and then there are others who hang out too long. And there is this sweet spot for, I'm going to go in and I'm going to add to your knowledge, and I'm going to ask meaningful questions and get you to think, children. Right? I'm going to get you to think more deeply about what you were doing. And then I'm going to the next group. And then I'm out.
Because I feel like in order for them to actually do the thinking that you're trying to promote, they need to be away from you sometimes. Otherwise, they're relying too much on you to do the thinking sometimes.
They can come to rely on us, but also what adults do is they just take over.
Yes,
so many adults take over.
Too. Yeah.
The goal is not to take over the play. The goal is to get them to think. To extend the play. Yeah. So if the goal is to extend the play, then I don't want to stay that long. I want to just drop these little nuggets, these questions, these little nuggets, these little thought nuggets, and kind of leave.
Yeah.
There's something I learned about this week that I loved the way they phrased it. I think it's something I've done, but I loved the way that was phrased. And it was from Harvard Graduate School of Education, and it's called Making Thinking Visible and Getting Thinking Routines for Children Established in Your Classroom.
Thinking routines. Okay.
Yeah. So there are a number, you can look this up. Maybe I'll put a link on the website to a video about it, but it's, there are different sorts of thinking routines. And I think they're somewhat dependent on the age and development of the children, that we want the children to get into when they're doing things. This is the routine for thinking about it. Mm-hmm. And it's a 3-step for this age. I think the best 3 steps are see, think, and wonder.
Okay.
What do you see? Right? It's observation, cognition, and wonder.
Yeah.
So we want children to notice things. What do you see? And say it out loud.
Yeah.
Making thinking visible. What are we seeing here? What do we think will happen? What do we think we should do? So that's the think part. And then wonder, what do we wonder about?
Okay.
And that's like the 3 steps of making thinking visible for very young age groups, where we want them to be saying these things out loud. So when I go over and I'm talking to children, like in dramatic play, these are the 3 things that I'm going to do. I'm going to point out something we can observe. I'm going to ask what they think about something. And I'm going to demonstrate and say, I wonder what would happen if this happens. What do you wonder?
Yeah.
Okay.
But then I feel like you have to leave in order for them to do the wonder.
You do. You have to leave. You have to leave to see
Yeah.
what they do with what they saw, what they
Yeah.
thought, and what they wondered. Because
Yeah.
if I go in and I say, I wonder this, let's try it. Now it's all about what
Let's
I
try it.
wondered, right?
Yeah.
But
And you're in control of the experiment or the whatever, the
Right,
experience of
right.
it. But like, it should really be their wonder. Like, I could wonder on things. I'll experiment at home if I wonder about it. Like, they need to, they need to do the wondering, and their wondering is going to be different than yours because you are a 30, 40-year-old person who has different wonders about things.
I also, it reminds me of when people are reading to children and the children are no longer listening, but the adult keeps plowing through the story. If you want to know how it ends, you finish it later. That child is done.
Later.
So that's what you reminded me of when you said, I'll just do it at home. But I also think when children wonder things and we say to them, wow, that's a really great question. Here's how we can solve that. That's not what we should always be doing. We should sometimes be saying, if you wonder that, figure out how you can find out. And then we leave. We leave, we get out.
Because when you as the adult are solving the problem, you already have your problem solving skills. You need the children to learn how to problem solve. And the only way they can learn how to problem solve is to do it themselves.
So how do they self-experiment, right? Through this process. You see something, you think something, you wonder something.
Yes.
And then you have to put that seeing, thinking, and wondering into action.
Yeah.
Again, there are other thinking routines that you can implement in your class depending on the children. I will post a link to that video. It's on YouTube. I'll post a link in our website, and it may, by the time you listen to this episode, it may already be there. It would be under thinking routines in our listener resources.
Cool.
So when do you get out? I've seen people go over, children are playing restaurant, an adult goes over, they ask the adult what they want to order. The adult orders something, they get it back. The adult stays there. Now all the children are gathering around the adult to see what else the adult wants to order.
Right. Yeah.
And they're all just running back and forth, bringing fake food to the adult.
It becomes very adult based at that point. And I feel like maybe because of COVID and they were home and they were with adults a lot during that period of time, that a lot of the children are very comfortable interacting with adults, but not so comfortable either playing by themselves or with other children, so I feel like then they become reliant on these adults to play with them, and then they don't know how to interact with their peers, so I feel like as an adult, knowing when to leave, start the play and get them jump started, and then quietly exit or just exit so that they can continue to play with their peers.
Right.
Would be helpful for them.
And, I want to give them the opportunity to socialize and make socialization mistakes. Honestly, I want to give them the opportunity. If I'm always sitting there, then we don't have as many teachable moments and opportunities to go over to them and help to guide their coping skills, their behavior decision-making. Right.
You don't want all of that. You don't want them to grow up to rely on an adult to solve their problems or help them cope. They should be able to do that on their own eventually, but
also,
they're not going to know how to do it if they
just have less problems if I'm sitting there.
Yeah. Well, that's true too. Yeah.
Right.
There's nothing to solve socially if you're sitting there. Yeah.
Go in, help them with a thinking routine, and then get out.
And then
go. Adios. Adios. Bye. Bye. Shalom.
Yeah. There you go.
See you.
Yeah.
Salam. Bye.
Yeah.
That's probably what arrivederci. That's my entire repertoire of hello, goodbye. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, that's just...
Feel free to send me more words for it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not bilingual person. I wish I was. I'm envious of those of you who know many languages.
Yeah.
But you have to know when to go in.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel like, oh, look at the idea they had. We can expand on that with new words, new thoughts, some questions, some wondering, and then just leave them in the wonder. I think, don't you think it would be, if you implement this thinking routine and children who are used to wondering, you can just say, what do you wonder? Let's look at it. What do you wonder? Or children who are not used to it, if you say to them, let's look at it and think about it. I wonder what would happen if we put another block right here. What do you wonder?
Yeah.
And ask them to wonder. And then I just walk away and I
away.
watch from afar to see who's wondering they tap into.
Yeah.
Is it theirs or mine?
Right. And also, when you walk away, sometimes you hear after you ask about this, like, I wonder what you wonder. You can hear some really awesome, like 3-year-old conversations about things, like things that you would never have even thought that they would think. And it's just amazing to me, like where their thinking will sometimes go, and now they're talking to each other, which is the goal. You want them talking to each other about this, not themselves. Well, I mean, even if they talk to themselves, it's fine as long as they're wondering. But like, it's amazing what like a little bit of wonder will bond these kids together. Now they can interact and have a friendship based on this wonder, this shared wonder that they have. And it's kind of cute and amazing to see that sometimes,
Don't you think if children are building something and someone wonders, like, I wonder who goes in that building, don't you think that could lead to really rich conversation among young children?
Yes. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like the conversations that happen just based on their wonder, or you instituting a wonder into it, it's going to take them to a spot that you probably didn't even think it would go, like their minds are just amazing little things,
They really are.
Yeah.
They really are. Sometimes they'll tell you what they wonder. People may be thinking, how do I teach wonder to children? Children are full of wonder. They'll sometimes tell you what they wonder.
Yeah.
I remember you once telling a story on the podcast about your niece thinking there was some sort of, what was on the roof? What animal was on the roof?
We were talking about, I think, reindeer on the roof. And then she goes, no, it was a rabbit.
It was a rabbit, right?
Roof.
Rabbit on the roof.
And I said, well, do you really think that a rabbit could get on the roof? Kind of, she was like, oh yeah, it'll just hop there, like this. But that was like amazing to me that she really, she wondered about it. She still sometimes talks about.
I think that's an example of wonder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Can this possibly happen? I think it's twofold. Can this possibly happen? And will Aunt Alison think it can happen? Like, I think it's wonder about you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, because she is pretty, she's very funny like that. And I mean, she's 3.5 now, but like that story, and I think I told that story to tell about how my mother was like, no, that can't happen. And I was like, oh, whatever, let her think that it happens, and like, let her wonder about that for a long time. I think she still once in a while will talk about a rabbit on roof, so she's still thinking about it, even though it happened like 3 or 4 months ago, so like that one experience of her thinking of rabbits on the roof has still got her wheels going,
So she wonders about animals. We're really just putting words to what children already do. And I think that we can demonstrate for them what wonder means by saying, I wonder what would happen if, or I wonder who, or I wonder, what do you think? And
also,
we can also practice that conversation with them during large group times.
Because I think what happens for adults with this whole wonder conversation is like adults always want there to be an answer and an ending, I think, so like when they're like, oh, I wonder what will happen. Oh, let's find out so we can end this. Do you know what I mean? Like, so we know the answer. And really the practice would be like, I wonder what will happen, and just leave it open-ended. And it could be open-ended for weeks, months, years, you never know. I mean, my niece is still talking about the rabbit that's on the roof, and that was like in December we talked about that. So like, so that's been months and she's still wondering about this thing. So let her. Do you know what I mean? And you don't have to sit there and be like, you know what? That would never happen, and like just burst her bubble. You could just let her wonder about it. And it might lead her to other questions about other animals and like what animals can do and what they're capable of. And who knows, like it could just be this open-ended thing and just let it happen. But I feel like adults have this like, oh, let's answer it. Let's experiment and we'll have the answer and then you'll know. It's like, they don't need to know right now. They could wonder about that forever. So
do you think, let's say children are in a free play time and they wonder something and I think, oh, I can show them that. Maybe I show them that at another time, not in that moment.
I'd say let them wonder about it for a little bit.
And then bring in
show that.
an experiment or something.
Yeah.
And I don't even know that I would connect it back to the original conversation. I don't
Maybe
think
not.
I would.
Maybe not, because it might, if you don't connect it, it might actually lead to more questions and more wonder and more inquiry, so like, yeah.
Yeah. I also think that I'm not calling out their wonder. If I bring
Right.
something in, right, let's say they wondered something and I think, oh, I can actually show them that through an experiment or an exploration.
Yeah.
And then I bring something in a week or two later and we just do it. I'm not going to go back to remember when you wondered this, here's the answer. I'm going to just do it and see if the child connects it to the prior experience.
Yeah. And they might not connect it right away.
That's okay.
They might connect it like a month from now and be like, oh, now I get it. And you have to let them make that connection on their own. They might never connect it because they might not be interested in it anymore, and they might never connect it. Or like a year from now, they're in another class and I'm like, oh, now I remember when Miss Allison did that. Now it makes sense.
Right.
Right. But 100%. It's all like building, So, but you're right. I don't think I would mention, like, remember, Johnny, when you were talking about that, that's what this is. Because then it might almost like taint his wonder. He might be like, well, why bother wondering about things? She's just going to tell me what the answer is eventually anyway. You know what I mean?
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
And also, I think it demonstrates for them, if I don't connect it and I wait for them to eventually connect it, I think it demonstrates for them that that's sometimes how life works. Do you remember, Allison? I had a situation in my life. I'm not going to get into what it was, but I had a situation in my life where I was like, really put off by someone's behavior. And then it was weeks later that a light bulb.
I remember the aha moment. Yes.
Remember that? I contacted you. I was like, wait a minute. I understand why this happened.
Yes.
But it was weeks later. Sometimes things dawn on us. We don't immediately make connections. That's part of being human. We make connections. Haven't you all ever had the experience, like, I don't know, you're doing something like unloading a dishwasher and all of a sudden your brain goes to something that happened and you go, oh, I understand it now, or I get it better. We need time to process and let it get into the inner layers sometimes.
Yeah.
And children should be given that time. So I think I'm answering my prior question when I said, I don't think I would connect it. I'm going to now say, I absolutely would not connect it.
Because I also feel like if you take your situation as an example, now, had I said what you realized weeks before, you weren't ready to hear that. Yeah, I don't think you weren't ready. You weren't you just mentally were not there yet, but since you came upon it on your own and it dawned on you on your own, and you're like, oh, it just makes it more meaningful. It makes it more reality for you, so I think it's the same way with kids. Like, yeah, I might sit there and be like, here's the answer to your question. And they're just not ready for that yet because they're still in their wonder and their questioning, and they're still in their own thoughts. Eventually they'll be like, aha, now I get it. Now I know what she's talking about.
Right. We digressed a little. Let's get back to a little bit, but I think it was good. When do we leave the play group? I think we leave the play group in the moment where we have posed some questions that have them thinking about what they're doing. That's when I leave.
Yeah. Because you want them to have the opportunity to think. And if you're there, they might not have that opportunity.
Right. I think I pose questions. I listen to whatever they say as answers. I smile and I say, carry on. And I go to the next group.
Next group. Yep.
And see how that discussion hopefully deepens their play.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do we want the preschool peeps to do today? We would love for you to go to our website and check out the blog that we have. And there are some videos on there, not money yet. We just recently started these sections of the website.
The videos, yeah.
But go and check it out. Log into the website and do that. Costs you absolutely nothing. And what else do we want them to do? We would love to see you on our Facebook page and all that stuff. So
all that good stuff.
Yes. And feel free to contact us with anything that happens with students. If you start to implement thinking routines, let us know how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, folks.
We love hearing from people.
We really do.
Yeah, we
do.
So
thank you for contacting us, and we hope to hear from you soon. Bye, peeps.
Bye.